This week on Aliens Explored, we will be investigating the so-called UFO death riddle of Todmorden, West Yorkshire. In June 1980, a young police officer was sent out to investigate the mysterious and very suspicious death of a coal miner named Zigmund Adamski. This would prove to be just the beginning of a series of events that would ruin the life and career of Police Constable Alan Godfrey. This episode is dedicated to our Explorer of the Week, Toby Fomes, who is one of our supporters on Patreon. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/Aliens Explored and find a tier that matches your pocket.
Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
Welcome back, listeners, to Tales from the... No!
What?
I'm doing completely. Oh, go. Right. Do you know
I think you should leave that in.
I might leave this in. Let me try again, though, because we are pleased to welcome you, listeners, to Aliens Explored, the other podcast.
The other podcast.
It's gone horribly wrong already. No, yes, welcome listeners to Aliens Explored, your weekly podcast where we look at UFOs, UAPs, extraterrestrials, extraterrestrial biological entities, all manner of strange and weird things in the skies, on the ground, in space, underwater, and anywhere else we can think of, and even a few places we can't. That's quite a lot, isn't it?
That is quite a lot, yeah.
I am one of your hosts, Stu Jackson.
And I'm your other host, Neil Kelly. So episode 134, we still haven't got it down pat, have we?
We haven't got a standard introduction, but I don't want us to have a standard introduction, really.
No, I mean, fly by wire. Or
fly without a safety net, obviously. Yeah. Just in case any listeners are wondering what the hell I was going on about, check out Tales from the 20 Side. That's the other podcast, well, certainly that I do and you have done very extensively in the past before you got really busy with regular acting work, Neil.
If you can call it that.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're in London and you feel like playing Monopoly life-sized, well, you won't be able to escape it because it's on billboards and posters everywhere.
It is.
On sides of buses, on the escalator as you're going up and down into the metro, into the tube stations. You'll see it's in your face all the time. And I'm Mr. Monopoly.
That's it. And if you want to hear us on another podcast, the one that I got wrong at the beginning is Tales from the 20 Side, a Pathfinder role-play game podcast. So, like, if you've seen the new Dungeons and Dragons movie and think, I wonder what all this role-play stuff is about, go listen to Tales from the 20 Side. It's not Dungeons and Dragons, but it's of the same ilk. That's fair to say, isn't it?
I think it's fair to say, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a sort of... Well, it's not so much like a board game as like a story, isn't it? You're making up a story as you go along. The games master set up the parameters of the story, but the characters decide for themselves what they're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's an adventure.
It is absolutely. It's an adventure, a bit like doing this podcast. That's an adventure sometimes. Oh goodness, yes. So, how have you been keeping, Neil? It's been quite a while since we last spoke.
It has, yeah. It might not seem so to our listeners, but yeah, it has been. It's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it? Because one or other of us wasn't available for various reasons. I've just been doing the same old thing, sort of plodding along, doing my Monopoly life size, which is a default 6 days a week. If I can work 5 or even 4 days a week, but usually if I have those days off, it's for a reason. It's not often, you know, when you have that time when you think, I've got the day off, and usually if you've got one day off, you've got shit to do. You've got all sorts of stuff to catch up on.
God, yeah.
Even if you get 2 days off, there's still that. But when you're on your third day off, you're thinking, I don't actually have to do anything. I can do what I like.
It's rare I have those days. It is rare I have those days. Usually those days are kind of forced on me by my health. It's like, you know, if I've got kind of no work booked in, I have to be catching up on jobs. I've got to. That's good. It's always good to have regular work. That's not to be sneezed at.
No, for an actor, it's quite unusual.
It's the Holy Grail.
Actually, most of my acting career, I have had regular jobs, so I've been lucky in that respect, as long as you can count them as acting.
Well, of course we do.
Yeah.
It's acting. You know,
role play, immersive, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's all acting work. It's not all Hollywood and, you know, TV and things like that.
West End stage.
No, that's just the tip of the iceberg for the acting industry. It's the one that most people know about, of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of, I was going to try and segue something between tips of icebergs and coal mines then. I no idea.
Yeah, that's a tough one. You have to work on that a bit, I think.
Yeah, I'll go and
labour a point here and there.
I'll have something for that in about a fortnight's time, I reckon. Something will come to me in the middle of the night. It usually does. So this week's episode, we are going to West Yorkshire, so not far from where I'm from. I'm from South Yorkshire, here in England. West Yorkshire is, funnily enough, to the west of that. It's kind of... Is it
actually a separate county?
Yes, it is.
Are there separate counties? Is it West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire and South Yorkshire? Are there 3 counties of Yorkshire?
4. Well, so here's where it gets complicated. Technically and originally, Yorkshire was 1 county, but divided into 4 ridings. You had North Riding, East Riding, South Riding, and West Riding. Then over time that evolved into 4 separate counties. You had North Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, and Humberside. Because East Riding wanted to be... Well, now Humberside has gone back to being East Riding. So I don't know anymore.
Okay.
Completely lost.
Now we've established where we are. So you're from South Yorkshire. These events in a place called Todmorden happened in West Yorkshire.
Yes.
And it was a series of events involving one, I suppose, fairly hapless police constable, PC Alan Godfrey.
Oh, that's a brutal thing to say, calling him hapless.
Well, it didn't work. This story doesn't work out well for him, does it?
It absolutely doesn't. It's a very unfortunate and I would say like a sad story for him.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's of his making. Not
of his making, but... So I suppose hapless does imply that, doesn't it? The unlucky...
Yes, the
luckless,
unfortunate.
The unfortunate
yes.
PC Alan Godfrey.
Definitely. Sorry, I was quite surprised when you said hapless. I'm thinking, oh, Neil's going straight in with the naysaying.
Now, there are at least two separate incidents involved here, aren't there? That
There are.
The,
Well, I'm going to say three separate incidents.
Of course, you
Because
actually four.
well,
So it started out with the death of a 56-year-old. Was he a retired miner?
no, 56 in the 1980s. He'd have been very much active. Yes,
Okay.
20 miles away from Todmorden, still in West Yorkshire, in a place called Tingley. Yes, Zigmund Adamski. And ironically, there's a coincidental connection with UFOs right there. Do you remember George Adamski that we discussed, who had his photos of the chicken brooder UFO?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so same surname. I've no idea if they're related or not, but yeah. But yes, so this is 1980, which I still remember quite reasonably well. I expect you do as well, Neil.
Yeah, that was the year I turned 21, so yes, I kind of remember it.
It's still kind of shocking to me when people say about, well, 1980 was like 43 years ago. It's like, no, shut up. No,
Yeah,
it wasn't.
no.
It can't have been. And it was. It was a long time ago, sadly. Yeah, so 6th of June, Zigmund Adamski, yes, coal miner. Now, have you ever met coal miners? Have you ever had, I mean, it's a bizarre question, I suppose, but have you ever kind of been around coal miners? Do you...
I don't hang around them much. I did work with a guy once who was when I was in the army. I worked with a guy who had previously been a miner up in Sunderland.
Right, okay. I mean, growing up myself in pit villages, well, a pit village, Armthorpe, in South Yorkshire, I can remember sort of... See, I grew up around coal miners, and if there's one thing I would say about them, they're kind of sensible, stoic people, generally speaking. I can't speak for this guy, Zigmund Adamski, personally, but as a group of people, they're generally very sensible, straightforward. Yeah.
That's not been my experience. I mean, that might just be a Yorkshire thing. My experience is because of the kind of environment they work in, which is volatile, frightening, potentially very dangerous, potentially lethal,
dangerous.
that they tend to be very superstitious. And they believe in all sorts of things, all sorts of things that feel like a bad omen when they're going down the mines.
Yes, I'll absolutely 100% agree with that. But that
just like soldiers on the battlefield get very superstitious about things.
That doesn't stop them being sensible.
Doesn't stop them being sensible, but it does. When you're living in that heightened state where if you put a foot wrong, you could die. People do tend to get superstitious.
Oh, very much so. Yeah,
and look for lucky
absolutely.
charms and bad omens and all that sort of thing. So,
well, see, I put that down to less likely to take risks. You're just not going to chance it from a spiritual point of view.
you
just don't take chances. Yeah.
You would be risk averse.
Yeah. So risk averse. Let's go with this, and let's assume for a moment that this Zigmund Adamski is a risk averse person, because at 56 years old, as a coal miner, he's got to be risk averse because it was a very dangerous environment. Yeah. You don't get to be a 56-year-old coal miner without being risk averse. So he goes out shopping, 6th of June. And then he disappears. Nobody hears from him again until 3 days later, on the 9th of June, he's found dead 20 miles away in Todmorden. He's found on top of a pile of coal, which is... I don't know whether to determine that as a significant thing or not, because this is a was at the time, certainly in 1980, before the mining industry was dismantled. But let's not go into the politics of that because we'll go on a massive digression, you and I'm certain. But yeah, so piles of coal were not uncommon in the area. So I don't know if that's a significant thing or not.
We'll just park that for now, shall we? So his body's lying on top of a 10-foot, say 3-metre high pile of coal in Todmorden, 20 miles from his house. He was wearing a suit.
Yes.
His shirt, wallet, and watch were all missing.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I mean, the wallet and watch being missing, if he was mugged, that'd be pretty obvious. But his shirt being missing.
Unless it was a really nice shirt.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Now, again, sort of casting my mind back, coal miners were, when they went out, particularly the older generations of coal miners, when they went outdoors, they would get dressed up. They would wear a suit. I mean, at first I thought, that's odd. Why would he wear a suit to go to the shop? But actually, I think about like my grandfather was a miner, and yes, he would always wear like a suit if he went
56
outdoors.
years old. He would have been born in 1924.
Yeah.
So, in those days, people always wore suits. I remember going to visit my grandparents on a Sunday. Then Granddad would always be wearing... In fact, even my dad wore a suit but instead of wearing a sort of office tie, he'd wear a sort of knitted tie.
Yeah.
And instead of a suit, he'd have a tweed jacket with patches on the elbows. But
it's of a style. People made the effort, and definitely. This guy would have been, maybe a little bit younger than my grandfather, but not much. Only about a few years. So so that in of itself, him wearing a suit. While I first thought that's odd, actually it's not. It's not at all. But his shirt being missing is a weird one. He'd had a weird haircut as well, roughly cut. I think the description was. In spite of the fact he'd only been missing for 3 days, he only had 1 day's worth of beard growth.
So, I mean, your beard continues to grow after your death, does it?
No. There's a whole... Oh, right. Yeah, here's a bit of trivia information. It's a common misconception that the hair and nails continue to grow after you die. What actually happens is once the body dies, it starts losing all its moisture, all its water, and the skin starts to recede. It starts to shrivel. And that gives the appearance of the nails and hair growing longer.
And hair, So when they open someone's coffin and they seem to have claws and fangs.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's caused by the body shriveling around the teeth and nails. Okay,
exactly
so I mean, there seemed to be a suggestion that he'd been missing for 3 days, but only had 1 day's growth. That he'd been somewhere there where only 1 day had passed in wherever he was, while 3 days had passed here. But really, to me, it just implies that he was. I mean, it doesn't actually say. In this, I'm reading Sky History, and I read in Wikipedia as well. Didn't actually say how long they thought he'd been dead.
No. Well, I mean, let's not forget, 40 years ago, things were not as precise as perhaps they are today.
Not as precise, but I think they could have decided, well,
you would have
the guy's been freshly killed or whether he's been dead
maybe
a few
some
days.
Details were just not reported because it was considered unimportant, perhaps. I don't know.
Maybe.
I honestly don't know on that.
They seem to be making something about the 1 day's growth of beard, despite being missing for several days. When actually all that could indicate was that, he's just been dead.
Yeah, he'd had a shave the day before. Yeah.
Okay.
That's quite a possibility. I'm more than willing to recognise that. But yes, it does I get what you're saying there. They're implying a connection between 3 days missing, 1 day's big, but
yeah,
it implies certainly that he's not been dead for 3 days, or does it?
But they don't actually say it.
No,
There's other signs that he was freshly killed. Body's still warm.
no. I mean, I can definitely kind of put that to one side and just say that's kind of
But another possibility. They say, well, he's been gone 3 days, but he's only got 1 day's growth of beard. Maybe the person who roughly cut his hair gave him a shave too.
Yeah, could be. But he was found. Now again, they didn't. I couldn't find anything about cause of death. In his
no,
in his thing, but he was reported as having. So there is a bit of the coroner's report available, which is that he had mysterious burns around his neck, head, and shoulders that had been treated with some kind of strange ointment that defied analysis.
By forensic scientists. Also, another little thing I want to point out, I'm really nitpicking here, it said that while he was wearing a suit, his shirt, wallet, and watch were all missing. So they don't even say that it was the suit that he went out in. I mean, can we assume that? Or
I'm personally going to assume that. I think if it was a different suit, that would have been very noteworthy.
It doesn't say whether he had a wife and kids.
No.
What his because if he was a guy who lived on his own, then who would really know what was his suit and what wasn't? I mean, I know these days, maybe not back in 1980, forensic investigators, when they find a body, they can tell if this is a body that died wearing those clothes or a body that has since been dressed. Someone's dressed the corpse in something else. They can tell. I don't know how. But
that would be way beyond me. I think it's safe to assume. I like the attention to detail there. I think it's safe to assume that it's the same suit he went missing in, or it was his own suit.
Because tying that into the mysterious burns on his neck, head, and shoulders, that would be consistent with his clothes catching on fire and the burnt clothes being thrown away and someone dressing him up in another suit, which they maybe picked up from a charity shop or something.
Well, let's not forget burns can happen a variety of ways. It's not just about from fire or heat, but friction can cause burns as well. Radiation can cause burns.
Electricity, and chemicals, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, one wild theory that did the rounds at the time, apparently, was that he'd been killed by the KGB. Remember, this wasn't long after a Bulgarian defector working for the BBC was killed with a poisoned umbrella on a bridge in London. This guy, this spy Bulgarian agent, jabbed him in the back of the ankle or calf, I think it was, with an umbrella. It made it look like an accident that kind of happened as the guy was going to work, happened in a crowd, someone accidentally pokes you with the umbrella. But this one injected a tiny little pellet which contained a poison called ricin, which is extremely deadly, and he died a little while after. So that was in 1978, I think. So that would have been fairly fresh.
But why would the KGB want to murder a minor?
Well, what had he been before? I mean, Adamski is he's got a
Polish. He was originally Polish.
Zigmund Adamski. This was also around the time of Solidarity. Poland was kind of in uproar against the government, it's basically Poland had a puppet government set up by the Soviet Union, and the Polish trade union Solidarity was striking. I think there were more, not just over terms and conditions. I think there was far more politics to it. Whether he was anything to do with that, this was at the height of the Cold War, wasn't it? This was
very much. I mean, certainly, the most I can make of that is that to his colleagues, other miners, his death was a complete and utter mystery. And I'm kind of, I'm inclined to think that if he were something significant in, to do with Poland, it would be, people would have known. His friends, his close friends, and there's a whole thing like you hear it talked about with battlefields. Again, another little fact, trivia moment here. So we've all heard the phrase "blood is thicker than water," but people get it completely and utterly the wrong way round, because the full quote is, "The blood that is spilled is thicker than the water of the womb." And what it actually means is that people who spill blood together, soldiers who fight together, people who face dangers together, are closer than people who just happen to be born from the same parents.
Okay, because the first meaning I was ever told was blood is thicker than water was that actually your family will always be closer to you than anyone else you happen to meet. That's the water of friendship versus the blood of family.
But the original version is the exact well, not the exact opposite. It's not, strangers are not closer than family, but people who form bonds in difficult, dangerous situations. And again, as we've said, the mines were dangerous situations. People who became friends through mining together were incredibly strong. That's an incredibly strong bond and friendship. Now, Yorkshire people are famously, I'm really the exception to the rule here. Very stoic people, very, don't show emotions very easily. Oh, but I can tell you the miners, they stuck together, and that's one of the things when you look at the miners' strikes and the solidarity that they showed with each other. It's why miners who went into work during the miners' strike, that was such an abhorrent thing, is because that was betraying your brothers, that was betraying your fellow miners, and what a despicable thing.
The rancor that caused, I think it still exists today.
It absolutely
does. Children of miners hate other children of other miners who they consider to be traitors. But also, the kind of corollary of that is that people who have been through something together, like miners, like soldiers on a battlefield, they are bonded by that blood. But at the same time, they can become alienated from their family. Soldiers returning home on leave who find members of their family who have never been near a battlefield telling them about what they think they should do or whatever. They realize that they have nothing in common with these people. I can't even have a conversation with you because you think you know it all, but you've never been anywhere near a battlefield. So they're kind of driven away from their family by that experience and driven to what they call armchair generals. All the people back home would say, "Oh, well, you should do this and you should do that." Well, if you've ever been there, you're talking bollocks.
Yeah. So coming back to the whole potentially the KGB thing, I think his fellow miners would have had some inkling that there was some reason why that would happen, but no, they were utterly mystified, couldn't understand it.
This is a guy who does a dangerous job and then ironically comes to a sticky end on his day off, just going down the shops. Just goes to show, doesn't it? When your numbers up, your numbers up. We're coming up to 27 minutes on this podcast.
We are,
and we haven't even mentioned PC Alan Godfrey, who was the the Bobby who was sent out to investigate this, or to recover this body.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's make this a 2-part episode, because I think this whole situation absolutely warrants it. And let's round it off by mentioning PC Alan Godfrey. He's the man who was sent out to investigate when Zigmund Adamski's body was found, because he worked in Todmorden.
And speaking to reporters, PC Godfrey said there was a possibility Adamski had been abducted by aliens. I am open-minded, he said. I can't rule it out.
Yeah.
Words that would come back to haunt him.
Oh, wouldn't they just? Well, I'll tell you what, listeners, make sure you tune in next time to find out how they haunted him and why, as we continue this series of events and focus. Next time, more on PC Alan Godfrey, because Zigmund Adamski was just the beginning of the tale. So, look forward to that one.
Definitely. We'll actually get to the point next time, shall we?
Well, no, I think the whole Zigmund Adamski thing, that's an important aspect to this. I think because it's in the same area, and this area of Todmorden has become quite the UFO hotspot. Certainly over the last 40 years. So I think it's very, very relevant, and it's very relevant, I think, that that Alan Godfrey was the police officer sent out to investigate because of what happened later. But spoilers, let's not give away that until next week. So make sure you do join us next week, listeners. And in the meantime, you can let us know what you think about Zigmund Adamski's mysterious death. You can let us know via email, aliensexplored@gmail.com. You can message us on Facebook, on Twitter, by commenting on one of our YouTube videos. You can, if you become one of our Patreons, you get to join our Discord channel, where you can chat about this and other episodes and other events, and all sorts of things get discussed there. So that's worth checking out. Links to all this are below. And in the meantime, keep watching those skies over West Yorkshire, over South Yorkshire, over East Riding or Humberside or whatever the hell it's called now. And of course, everywhere else. Just keep watching the skies. Take care.
Catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Figo Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or visit aliensexplored.com.